Hey everybody, I'm Ryan Kelly. I'm one of the sales and tech support technicians here at WCFab. Today I'm going to be talking about common questions we get with coolant tanks. First question we usually get is the proper way to install the cap, as well as the proper way to install the coolant sensors. The cap itself is a two-prong style, similar to older version coolant tanks and older version radiators. So there is two prongs on each side that you will actually line up with two grooves that we have on the tank itself. So you just drop that down into place, give it a good push down, and give it a twist. Now you'll feel it kind of get loose and wiggle. That's in the first detent. It's obviously not where it's supposed to be. So you give it another good push and give it a twist, and you'll feel it turn and lock. Right there is where it's supposed to be. As you notice, it doesn't wiggle, move anything in place. There's no coolant that's going to be coming out of that at all. Now I'll move on to the sensors themselves. So we have two sensors here to show you. The first sensor is our Gen 1 sensor. This is a discontinued sensor. We no longer use this, but there still may be some in circulation, so we wanted to point it out to you anyways. This sensor is just a simple float design. On the side here, you'll notice there's an arrow. This one's got a little bit of debris on it, so you can actually see the arrow a little bit easier. But you want to make sure the arrow is pointing up. The arrow pointing up tells you that the float is in the proper position. So when the coolant tank is full, it'll sit like so. As coolant levels goes down, it'll disconnect. It'll throw a low coolant light. The second sensor is our new Gen 2 sensor. Works very much the same. The one thing I want to point out is the arrow that's on the backside here with the wires, the arrow has to point down. If the arrow is not pointing down, it'll throw a low coolant light right away. Similar process here in how it works. Sits like so, your coolant tank is full, and then the coolant level drops, and then it throws a low coolant light. Very similar process and sensor, just a little bit different design that we've moved on to. Now I'm going to show you guys the proper way to install the sensor. It's going to go on the back side of the tank here on this bung. So first thing I want you to do is to actually inspect the hole itself and make sure there's no dirt, debris, any metal shavings or anything that's in this bung that could be. We do tap them and we do inspect them before we send them out. But it is one thing that I always want you to check before you put the sensor in. And you're going to want to use a high temperature thread sealant. We use Permatex here in-house. It works very well. I'm gonna take this, do a pretty good layer all over the sensor. Gonna get a little messy here and use my finger a little bit on it. You wanna make sure the majority of the threads have a pretty good layer of the thread sealant in it. You don't wanna go overboard, but you want to make sure they're pretty full. That way it has time to sit, cure, and seal up in the threads on the tank. Next, you're going to go ahead and drop in the sensor. You want to get it as tight as you can with your hand to start, and be cautious with the wires. You don't want to get these all twisted up and ruin the connection. And you'll get down pretty far. The sensor will be almost all the way in. So that's as far as I can get by hand. As you can tell, the arrow on the sensor is pointing up at an angle and we need it to point down. So I'm going to set this back down. You'll take a 13mm wrench if you have the new black sensor here and just give it a good spin. I'm gonna go around one more time here. And then you'll have it like so, where the arrow is pointing down. You can typically wipe off some of this extra Permatex here just to make it look a little bit cleaner. And then you will want to let this sit for a minimum of 24 hours. The cure rate on this, it does take a little bit while. If you fill it up with coolant any sooner than that, it will cause a leak. So I recommend 24 hours at minimum for it to properly cure, so that way you don't have any leaks on your coolant sensor. That is all we have for you today with the coolant cap and coolant sensor install. If you have any more tech questions or tech support that you would like to, videos that you would like to see, feel free to comment below and let us know. Thank you. Have a good day.